everyone. Hello and welcome to the Outcast. I'm your host HC and with me is
Wolf.
And today, boy, aren't we ahead of the curve, I guess. So on the curve or jumping ahead, whatever you want, because today we're talking about Wizards, Tales of Arcadia. And now if you've been following this podcast or you just looked at our channel, I'm assuming. But wait, well, the Troll Hunters and Three Below reviews. Well, what can you do? We want to get to them earlier, but just other stuff popped up, so we never really managed to.
No. We have a plan. We're doing them in reverse order. Why? Because we want to. Because we can.
That's another way to look at it, but okay.
We totally didn't just decide to do it this way and waited too long and Wizards came out first. That's not what happened at all. This is the way we planned to do it. Absolutely.
You see, I'm honest, he's lying, but whatever.
Or you're lying and I'm honest.
Believe what you want. The
Where's
point is,
the lie?
we're here to discuss Wizards, the latest in the Tales of Arcadia franchise. But before we get to Wizards, though, we should probably just give. Actually, before we even do that, I just want to say that this episode is dedicated to my beloved sister, who was supposed to be here with us today, but
you better be clear. People will think you actually have a sister.
I don't care.
Fair enough.
Okay, but my dear friend, she was supposed to join us, but sadly she couldn't. But I want to dedicate all of this discussion to her, because if there's anyone who knows anything about Tales of Arcadia, it's her.
Mm-hmm.
And so this episode goes to her. On that note, why won't we actually talk about our kind of speed by opinions on the Tales of Arcadia shows thus far, because until we actually get to reviewing them. So Troll Hunters. Okay, that was it. Okay, but seriously, what are your thoughts on Troll Hunters and Three Below? Which one do you prefer?
I'd probably say I prefer Troll Hunters more. Three Below takes on a more kind of sci-fi approach, more futuristic, because, it's dealing with aliens and stuff like that. So, and I've never been a huge fan of sci-fi. I get into fantasy more, and Troll Hunters takes more of that modern kind of fantasy. Like, it's fantasy, but it's set in a modern era, right? Like, I kind of enjoy that more personally. That just is my thing.
See, that's interesting, because don't get me wrong, I love fantasy, but I always kind of connect it to sci-fi more, which is why I kind of prefer Three Below. But again, just because we prefer one doesn't mean like Troll Hunters is still a great show.
Yeah, absolutely. And Three Below is still enjoyable too. Although I've not seen the second season of Three Below. Sue me. I haven't got to it yet. But yeah, it's both are really enjoyable and fun shows, and I enjoyed my time with both of them so far.
Yeah.
But I err more towards fantasy stuff than I do sci-fi stuff. That always interests me more.
Yeah. One thing I do want to point out about this, I think, because nowadays it's kind of the concept of multiple movies and shows taking place in the same universe, is kind of picking up thanks to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. First example that comes to mind, but I think
it's the first example because it's the only one that's done it well.
I would say there's one more that did it well. Two, if we count this one, because honestly,
two,
okay,
only two.
And actually,
there's two things that's done it well: Marvel and then this.
Okay, I would also say that DC did it well with the old animated shows. The Batman animated show, the Superman one, the Justice League. These were good too.
Fair enough.
Give DC credit then, and they need one. But
yeah.
But on that note, I think for something that was, I know that there are books, but
this is based on a book series written by Guillermo. I'm gonna butcher his name. Guillermo del Toro. Jesus. I don't know why I had such trouble.
Well, I I just call him Del Toro.
But
That's
it was a
like,
book series written by him and I believe someone else. They wrote it together. It was co-written, I believe. I will check to make sure.
but the point. So until you check it, the point of the matter is, in terms of like an attempt to get a universe going with multiple shows and make it a franchise, I think this is a really good example to how you do it right. Because and there are obviously some hiccups along the way, but what can you do? This is the kind of there will always be hiccups when you're trying to connect three different shows or movies together and try and make it so each one stands on its own but also connects to the other. But I think so far they've been doing this relatively well.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think it's been done fairly well as well.
Okay. So I guess so. You said you prefer Troll Hunters. I said I prefer Three Below personally. We'll get to these shows and actually review them later down the road. We promise. But on that note, let's get to Wizards. And if you're new here, then welcome. Great to have you here. But the way this works is that we're starting with a bit of a non-spoilery discussion about the show, our thoughts. What we thought. How does this compare to the other shows? And then when we're about to go into the spoilers territory, We'll let you know so that you can go watch the show, finish it if you already started, and then you can come back and listen to what we have to say. With that said, Wizards, Wolf, non-spoilers. What are your thoughts?
I enjoyed it. Sorry, I was looking up the thing. Didn't find it right offhand. I will look more later. Yeah, I enjoyed it. I think it was fun. It's Let me ask you a question. Since I didn't see the second season of Three Below, was Dukesy introduced in that or no?
He was also in Troll Hunters,
He was?
like for a bit, yeah, for a bit, but
Really?
in both Three Below,
When? I don't even remember.
I honestly don't remember as well, but his voice actor is listed in the Troll Hunters Wikipedia page,
I
so
gotta.
he was there at some point. And in Three Below, I think he did show up in one episode of season 2, if I recall correctly.
Because it felt. This season to me felt a little bit. I don't know. It felt like it was on a little bit of fast forward because it felt like we were introduced to like Dukesy, right, for example, and it just felt like I didn't have as much of a connection to him because I've not been built up with him. So that's why I thought, oh, maybe this character was introduced in season 2 of Three Below, and
You
that's
know,
where.
here's the thing. Here's the thing. I agree with you. I agree with you on this. That the beginning, at the very least, was really rushed. The
I
beginning.
I say there are parts in the middle as well that we'll get to as well that felt a bit
Okay, that's
rushed.
fair. But this. But since you say this, I do want to say because I will say this in terms of personal enjoyment. I think this is the best of the three because I really enjoyed this one. And to put it mildly, and this is another reason why I'm kind of bummed that my friend couldn't be here because she can testify to that. I binged all 10 episodes in literally one sitting.
I did
Like
too.
but it was like it wasn't. I needed to do this for the podcast or something. No, no, no. I had plenty of time. I just wanted to see how everything was ending. I just wanted to see how stuff were going on. I just wanted to see everything already. So it wasn't binging for the sake of for it. I was literally enjoying myself and I wanted to see how everything goes on. But but then so in that sense, I think this was the best of the three. However, when I stopped and thought about it, I realized something. This would have been a lot better if it was called Troll Hunter Season 4, not Wizard. Because as a show on its own, I don't feel like I know Dukesy any better than his cameos in the previous shows, or that the show was even that much about him. At least not at the start of it.
Wow, yeah, he appears in 3 episodes in Troll Hunters Part 3.
Okay, that's helpful.
I do not remember him.
It's okay. I barely remembered him too.
I mean, to be fair, right, to myself, I'm going to give myself a little bit of freedom here and say, like, it's been 3 years, I think, since Trollhunters came out, if not
Um,
longer.
you
Yeah,
know, that makes sense.
Trollhunters released in 2016. Yeah, that released in 2016. Season 1 of Trollhunters did. Wow.
Mhm.
So, yeah, it's been
Actually,
almost,
that's 4 years.
yeah, almost 4. It was December 23rd of 2016, so not quite
Okay.
4 years, but very close. So, to be fair, well, let's see. Let's see. Yeah, season 3 of Troll Hunters is when he appeared. That was 2018, so 2 years
2 years.
thereabouts. Still, yet that's a long time, and that's another thing I wanted to bring up in my kind of general thoughts. Right, Wizards is good, but it comes with the problem of an extended universe type deal of when you do these things, you kind of rely on the fact that, oh, we've built some of these characters that we're now expanding, right? In this season, we've built them up in previous seasons, so you kind of have that familiarity with them. You're familiar with them, you've connected with them already. Now let's expand them and really allow you to connect with them. And the problem is it's been 2 years, right? I've not watched Troll Hunters since I last watched it. Like, I enjoyed
You
it, but
know,
I've not had the
this is
want to go back before Wizards came out. Some might have. Some might have that refresher. That's great. I didn't, and that's kind of the issue. Like, you're relying on me either having that refresher or just being that invested in being able to remember something 2 years ago. And I'm not. And so I'm
I will
just
say,
not as connected, I feel.
you know, I kind of get what you're saying, but you know, as someone who didn't have time to refresh on the other two shows myself, I would say again that I think my main point against this is that that it didn't really stand on its own, as opposed to the other. Like Troll Hunters was the start, so obviously that stands on its own. Tribolo does have a bit of a connection, but it's still standing on its own. Like you can watch Tribolo without watching Troll Hunters, and you'll get by fine. But this, you need that Troll Hunters information. You need that Troll Hunter character.
I,
You to
I
know the Troll Hunter characters because as it is, it's just like this was. I think this was also like advertised as the Avengers in a sense, like that this is everything coming together. Which this is not a spoiler because Dreamworks kind of put us out on their Facebook like literally hours after the season went up. We're getting a movie that really connects everything together next year.
a
So
movie. All right, cool.
yeah. Mhm.
Um,
Eh, so so in that sense, I didn't really know because if we are looking at this as this is where it all ends, this is everything coming together, then great. But now that we are looking at this as this is the third show that this is the third piece of the puzzle before we come together for the movie, then
unless there's a
I
second
don't
season of Wizards,
actually.
which,
For as far as I understand, this is the only one. Like now, we are just waiting for the movie.
oh, okay, fair enough. We'll get into that
So
then. I have some opinions on that then later.
yeah.
Let me ask you this, right? Because I kind of I get where you're coming from, though I disagree. I don't think they should call it Troll Hunters because Troll Hunters that felt like
No, 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 no,
Jim's
no.
thing.
You didn't understand me. What I'm saying is that it felt like a Troll Hunter season four
Yeah, yeah,
rather than its
and
own thing.
I get that, but I disagree with that because Troll Hunters felt like that was very much Jim's. He was the mainstay character, and Wizards, he's very much not. So I want to ask you.
I would disagree with this honestly. I would
I was
dis-
going to ask you, who do you think the main character of Wizards is? Like, who do you think
you
like
know.
the person we're really meant to follow and stand behind is?
Then I would say that really there is no main character. I would say like there
Like,
are
who do you think
several.
is the one leading the plot the most? Because I would
Mm.
argue that as far as Wizards is concerned, the focus is a lot of the time on Claire, with
Yeah,
it
I would agree
alternating
with that.
between Claire and Duxie. It's like it's either Duxie or Claire, mostly Claire, I felt.
Like I think what they were trying to do is to have this like dueling thing with Jim and Duxie. But the thing is that
Jim didn't feel
again,
like he was there at all, hardly to me. Like Jim felt to me, Jim felt very much side character in this one, which is fine. Like we've had our time with Jim. We
yeah, but
know
at the same
Jim's
time,
character.
it feels like they're trying to like build up Duxie as having a journey, which I see how, but at the same time, it feels like we also need. Oh, we need because there are a lot of scenes with Jim on his own and with Jim's relationship with other characters. And again, these are great scenes. I love those scenes.
Yeah.
But when you get down to it, this takes away from the main face on the poster. This is not the main
Cough,
character
cough.
of
It's
this
not the
show.
one you're looking at right now. That's Merlin. The background we're using is not the main face of
I
the.
sent him the picture with Duxie, but no,
It
let's.
won't fit in our setup, okay? It's too narrow.
I sent you another. Never mind, never mind. I'm not.
That one also doesn't work.
Okay, whatever. Basically, the point of the matter is, when you boot up Wizards on Netflix, the face you're mostly going to see is Duxie. And I honestly feel like, you know what this felt to me, actually? And again, I'm not saying this is a bad thing. I really like it.
Mm-hmm.
But it kind of feels like some of those fan fictions that try and continue the story, but at the same time they throw their own OC into it. And Duxie is that OC that near the end becomes relevant. Which again, I'm not saying this is a bad thing. If I'm calling it a fan fiction, it's a well done fan fiction. These are the people that know what they're doing, type of fanfic. But at the same time, it kind of like, yeah, I don't really remember Duxie from the other shows. I know he appeared in them, but I don't necessarily remember what his deal was. Like Arjan Karal uh, in Three Below, I remember they were in Trollhunters. I remember their episode, but so when they showed up, I knew who they were, and then I learned more about Duxie. I barely remember. So this show didn't develop him, and they tried to give him this journey, which feels a bit rushed. And again, until the end of the show, I just didn't feel like he was the main character.
Yeah. Yeah. Hmm. Again, like, I kind of go back to that idea of, for me, it definitely, yeah, it definitely felt like Duxie wasn't entirely the main character, and it was focused more on others more so than him, right? Like, he was there for it, he was leading some of it, but he wasn't really the focus of it, which again is fine. It's just, I don't know. I come away from this thinking like maybe it needed one or two more episodes, right, to build things up just a bit more. Maybe. If I take it completely standalone, if I go back and watch previous seasons and I see more of Duxie's character, of Troll Hunters and Three Below, and see more of Duxie's character there, maybe it's built up enough that I can say, okay, yeah, I can get behind this character here now. This feels like a good continuation for him. But as a standalone, right, looking at it as just a piece, as just a show that stands completely on its own merits without anything else, I feel like it needs a bit more. When I add in those other things from what I do know and remember of them, I still kind of feel like it needs a bit more, maybe. Like it needed one more episode, maybe two. Just something to build up a bit more, maybe, but I don't know.
Okay, that's fair. But again, I want to stress again that even though it sounds like we were pretty harsh on the show, we did enjoy it. Like again, in terms of personal.
Hello? Hello? HC? HC has died. It's very suddenly, it seems. It's unfortunate. I'm guessing Fairy killed him. I can hear. Oh, nope, he left. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, so moving right along. Hello,
Me?
you're back. Hello, can you hear
Can
me?
you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. You're good.
Okay, thank God.
You died.
So what I did say is that again, just making sure the audience gets it, that even though we've been hopping on some points, that we do legit enjoy this show. This isn't, we do like Troll Hunters, we do, and we do like this show, but but at the same time, we did have this little problem with it, which we want to bring up. So take this into consideration. Everything, everything stands. We
Again,
do
like
still
it,
like
it,
the
it
show.
got me to sit through all 10 episodes in one sitting and enjoy them all throughout. There were small things here or there, like I said, the kind of rushed nature of it, some jokes not landing with Steve. But overall, I think it was an exceptionally good watch, and it continues on the Tales of Arcadia series quite well. And I'm interested to see more.
Yep. So on that note, spoilers.
Sure.
Okay, so this is the point where we start talking about spoilers. If you haven't seen the show yet, this is your chance to close the thing down, come back later, and yeah, spoilers in 3, 2, 1. You still here? Good. Let's talk about them spoilers. So, episode 1.
We start off
Actually,
with a
before we
tiny
do,
copy of Spyro flying through the air.
yeah, but actually, before we get to that, I just want to say, I don't know who's the idiot on our Netflix who thinks in animations we need to keep changing the voice languages into Hebrew every time a new episode starts. It's driving me insane. And why would you think I want to watch
See,
an
they
American
don't
show?
they don't change the voice language for me, but Netflix has done this thing where it consistently pops up like, "Oh, you want subtitles for everything?" No, I don't need subtitles for English. I speak that language. I don't need it. But you wanted this episode too, right? No. You wanted this episode? No. I have to keep continually turning that off. So
Yeah,
I
so to
feel
me,
your annoyance. I don't know
no,
why
so
Netflix
like,
changed that.
so to me it was like, in the first episode, like it doesn't always do that, but with this, it's
Mm-hmm.
only I'm start watching this show, and all of a sudden when Duxie trips on that night thing, and it's and he says, "Oh, sorry," and it's like all of a sudden he's talking in Hebrew, and I'm like, "Wait, why is that? Okay, let me change it. Okay," and then the next episode starts, and it's in Hebrew again. It's like, "Wait, why?" And I change it again, and then again and again, and at some and like by the last few episodes, I was trained. I was like, okay, I know I need to do this, but at the start it was. On that note, for the one line I heard him say, I think the Hebrew voice actor for Jim and for Duxie are in real life brothers, but I didn't actually check it, so maybe I was just mishearing it. I don't fucking know. I don't care. Moving on. The actual show. So, you said Spiral.
Yeah, Archie, or what is his name? Archibald? I don't remember. The
Let's call him
cat.
Archie.
The cat, the changeling, the familiar cat. He can, change into a dragon form, and it reminded me of a smaller Spyro, personally. From the back, at least, anyways.
Well, it is a dragon, apparently, so.
Cat dragon.
Yeah, like it's a cat. It's a cat, but it does refer to itself as a dragon at some point. So there's that.
I mean, it has a dragon for a father, so it's a dragon.
Yeah.
It's just weird.
I will say that but I did like this Camelot design, like because it's not we have seen Camelot in other stuff, other shows, other movies, but on that note, I do like how they did Camelot in this, and I do like the idea of having this kid who essentially lived in those times, and just see him kind of evolve into the modern times, and trying to teach
Just want
Merlin
to point
some
out,
of
this
it.
kid is, Dukesy is 9 centuries old, and he doesn't look like he's aged a day. How?
Well, that's part of the magic. Like it's like you say, how didn't Merlin just die of old age by this
I mean,
point?
Merlin looks old, though, at least. Like, Dukesy should look like he's 9 centuries old. He looks like he's still a teenager. Like, how do these people age? Explain it to me. Like, do they just age, like, for 1 human year? It's like, oh, I've aged, for 1 human year, I've only aged, like, point one of a human. I don't know. Ugh. Like, every 50 years, they age 1 human year or something. Or, major dog years here.
The point is, the point of the matter is,
Listen, all right? It stuck out to me. It's an issue I have. I want that answer. Why does he look like he's a teenager when he's over 900 years old?
um, cartoon logic. I don't know what to tell you. It just is.
No, it can't be that way. I need an answer, HC. I have to know.
Then Mel del Toro. I have no.
He might actually answer me. He's the type of person who would. Fuck, now I'm gonna have to mail him.
Yeah. So Del Toro, if you're listening to this, first of all, my bestie is a huge fan of yours. Just saying, and she really likes The Shape of Water, and she has a pop of the creature from that. So sign it for her, please. But other than that, Wolf has a few questions for you.
Many. How does this world work sometimes? Also,
Okay,
a fucking Siri joke later. I see you. I hate you, but that was also kind of funny, but still.
Mm-hmm. I do,
You're breaking up again on me, HC. Yeah, can't hear you at all. Alright, he's gone again. This is going to be one of those episodes, ladies and gentlemen. Continuing on. Hello. Welcome back.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Let's hope this is the end of it. But yeah,
We
what
will
did
see.
I want to say? So I do think that the time skip between the Camelot and modern and stuff in Arcadia was actually pretty funny.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it was done well. It was interesting. And I kind of like getting a bit of just that small, bit of, oh, this is Dukesy's past. He was an apprentice to Merlin. Flash forward, Merlin's been gone for 900 years, and he's just been doing his own thing by himself, right?
Yeah.
It's it's a good hook because this entire episode is, oh, Dukesy's been doing his own thing in Arcadia as well, trying to protect it, and
Again, this is the part where I remember there was, I have a hazy memory that, there was the three below episodes about these creatures, about what he was doing. I remember something regarding this.
That's new to me. I did not know that appeared in Three Below, which is interesting. And then Merlin shows up. Dukesy has a back and forth with Merlin about him being gone for 900 years and never showing up. And then all of a sudden, you have
We have like
Merlin.
this.
Yeah,
We have this reunion with the
brain
Troll
fart.
Hunters characters.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Steve, Toby, and Arg. He has to go get them because they're the protectors of Arcadia, or the guardians of Arcadia, right? And
Yeah.
he gets them, and they're off to save the world again because the world is going to end potentially again. And then we see kind of one of our antagonists for this season, this night dude who has control of the shadow creatures as well, right?
Mm-hmm. And this leads us to Camelot, which I like this idea that Camelot was just started being like this island floating in the middle of nowhere, and and later on we see that it's like a battleship, and that is and like the island of Avalon, they call Avalon is what they called the engine for it. I like that. That was cool.
Yeah, it's real neat to see. It's like very unique, right? Turned the castle of Camelot into this flying fortress essentially, which is really cool and neat. And you know, this when we learn out that apparently Jim was wounded, right? And they're trying to keep him in stasis to keep him alive. And Claire's at the castle as well because Jim and Claire went
Mhm.
off on an adventure, which
Yeah.
which I've been told to understand is a thing that happens in the second season of Three Below.
If by happens you mean they Skype them and then Jim goes on camera and says hi and then goes off camera. No, I'm not joking. That's literally how it's
Well, I
done.
mean,
This is,
again, it's an explanation, I suppose.
but this is actually a thing that happens like in the last few seconds of Troll Hunter season 3. That they're kind of going off on their own with Jim being a troll now, and this is like the aftermath of like he was hurt. He has this thing stuck in his chest,
Mm-hmm.
and they put him in like stasis to save him. And as soon as they were about to start, heal him back, and they are attacked by another flying ship thing, which
The
I again this
Arcane
is kind of
Order.
cool. Yeah, the
Again, it's
arcane
very
order.
cool, but it's all very much kind of all of a sudden, right? It's all in your face. Previous seasons for the Tales of Arcadia stuff for Troll Hunters and Three Below kind of builds up to some of this stuff. We start off right at the beginning of okay, here's your main villains, here's your big antagonists. Okay, now let's put that on hold for a bit to go to the past, right? And then that's
Mhm.
episode 1, right? Like episode 1 is basically just setting all this up and then we're in the past. And that's the end of
Mhm.
episode 1. It's a great hook, but it's very
Yeah,
much very in your face, right? They're like all of a
yeah.
sudden all this is happening. All right, now
I have this in my
put that on
notes
hold.
too. That it's like I'm hooked, but at the same time, feels really rushed.
Mm-hmm.
But with that said, we're moving on to episode 2, History in the Making.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get this out of the way now. I do like how they actually use the names of the Knights of the Round Table. Like you have Lancelot, and there's also Galahad and all of those. But
Those are
I
the
love
only two. You
how
say all of those, but those are the only two Knights of the Round Table we got.
isn't there a Percival reference? I think there's a Percival
I
reference.
think they might have said Percival, but I don't know if we see him or not. But we didn't get any of the other Knights of the Round Table, though.
Well, there's Gawain, and who's left?
Oh, let me see. I don't remember them all right offhand. There's a lot. Depends on what you consider Knight of the Round Table, I guess.
I would like to point out that most of King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table knowledge comes from Sonic and the Black Knight,
Oh
and
God.
that one cartoon that I used to watch as a
So
kid.
yeah,
With,
you Knights of the Round Table. There's Sir Galahad,
yeah.
Gaheris, Excalibur, Eric, Ellen the White,
Mhm.
Ector, Dinadan, Caradoc, you know, many Boars the Younger, many Knights of the Round Table, depending on
But
where
we
you
also,
go.
but this is not
Mordred,
for. But this is not for another 2 episodes. But we also have the Lady of the Lake.
not really a Knight of the Round Table, but it
Yeah,
is
but
part of
she's
the
a part of
Arthurian legend. Yes.
the. Yeah. Okay, but back to our thing. Lancelot looks a lot like Steve, and I know this was planned,
Oh
but
yeah, it's on purpose. Again, these
yeah.
two have like this entire bromance going on, right? Like it's on purpose. Like this is supposed to be like quote unquote older Steve, essentially. Maybe a little bit smarter, a little bit stronger, and a little bit more tame, but still older Steve, right? And more brave. I They played Steve's cowardice up way too much in this one. I felt
Mm-hmm.
like we've seen Steve before. We've seen him be less cowardly than this. We've seen him have those moments of
Yeah.
bravery already. This was just like most of what his dialogue was him screaming and running away. And
Mm-hmm.
it's just it got old for me personally after a bit.
Yeah, I can see how like at some point it's one of those. Okay, we've seen this kid do stuff and kind of overcome his fear. He can do better than this.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing that happens in this episode is that Jim is awakened, And once the knights see a troll, they imprison him and take them all prisoners
Actually,
into
they plan on killing Jim because trolls are not allowed to be out of the forest on King Arthur's orders, and that's when we find out that King Arthur is not great, to say the least.
yeah.
He's, trying to kill all magical creatures, essentially.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, then
And we
that is
learn a
true.
bit more about why later, specifically. But as of right now, that's all we know, that King Arthur is trying to kill all magical creatures. And we see, Morgana pop up and Gunmar, and it looks like, and I kind of have a think here of like, oh, you're going to have Jim go with Gunmar in this episode, and he's going to actually learn, and we're going to quote unquote redeem Gunmar, but no, we don't do that, which is probably a good thing. But we do get a lot more for Morgana in this season, right? Like we find out that, her story's not all black and white, right? Which is interesting. I enjoyed that part.
Yeah, I like that. This is another thing about the show a lot, that it doesn't only work as a sequel to what we know so far, but it also works as a prequel.
Yeah, agreed. It does quite well.
And I do want to point out that when they carry Jim in the cage towards the castle, and they have this little bit of talking, I do like how Duxie actually takes time to thank Jim for the tips he leaves them where he walks. It's a little thing, but those little things like do character interactions for me. So I want to point it out.
It's nice to have small stuff like that. Like it's attention to detail like that, which really helps sell things. There's another interaction we'll get to later between Arch and Duxie as well. Again, and I loved a lot of the stuff
And
between
speaking
Claire
of
and Jim too.
interactions, yeah, and speaking of interactions, I also like how we kind of have this team of Duxie, Claire, and Steve. That you can just put these three characters together and they walk off each other great, and each one kind of has their own rules, and they always meet up and discuss strategies, and they actually work together. And I like that there's no like this team needs to get to know each other phase, so they fight all the time. They just like there are disagreements, but at the same time they also get along and realize that they need to rely on each other in order to get out of this mess.
Agreed.
And another thing is that when Jim is thrown in the jail, he sees other trolls there, and one of them, one of them, I was like, man, something about her looks familiar, or I think, or I was like, she's going to become important at some point, and yeah, later on we do find out that she was the original troll hunter.
She was Dea, but as you start, spoilers for a later episode, I suppose, but she starts off as Callista.
We're in the spoiler section, dude.
Yeah, but we go episode by episode. We're not supposed to skip ahead. Spoilers, HC. Jeez. Spoilers for the spoilers.
Fair enough.
But yeah, we find out that, her currently she's Callista, and and she eventually ends up becoming the troll hunter known as Dea. Mm-hmm. But for now, she's just Callista, and she's just another troll who's caught like Jim.
Yeah, and going back to our team for a second, for one, Claire really shined throughout this entire season, and this it starts in this episode.
Really, Morgana did too. I felt Morgana, Claire, and the interaction and relationship between, well, I don't know. We'll get to it, I suppose. But yeah, Morgana and Claire kind of stood out for me as characters that were really good this season, I felt. Like, they expanded on both of them a lot.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And this does bring me up to, there's the point where Duxie like tries to, get to Merlin's room, I think. He tries to get, and he sees like Merlin lecturing his past self, the younger Duxie. And the minute I saw this, I'm like, so does Back to the Future logic apply here? That like if they see each other, they faint? And like the second after I thought there's both of them, both Duxies interact with each other like it's no big deal. So guess not.
But they do have a thing between, because future Duxie puts his past self to sleep with a sleep spell, right? And tries to keep him hidden and everything so Merlin doesn't find out. So no one finds out that they're there, right? Because they're not supposed to mess with the past. Otherwise, they could mess things up eventually. And
Mhm.
so it's interesting because later on in another episode, right, future Duxie still keeps putting his past self to sleep, and Arch tells him, that if you keep doing that, it could cause, memory loss, right? And, Duxie's response is, I don't remember that. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, I see you, writers. I get what you're doing. That's clever. I see what you're doing with the whole, how would he not remember that he's seen himself in the past thing? Oh, that's how he doesn't remember. Because of the sleep spells, they affected his memory. I get you.
Um,
I see what you're doing.
yeah, that was a funny explanation as
But I mean,
to.
again, it's one of those small details that does work. It kind of says, okay, it makes things a bit more believable. It helps out because, as we all know, time travel episodes are a pain in the ass to get right because the second you go back and start messing with things, you immediately have to have planned for that, right? Because, you know, if you don't, your fans are going to look at it and say, okay, why was this like this in a past episode if they did this in the past before that episode aired? And what we saw in that episode doesn't reflect what actually happened in the past. And it's just like, pull out hair, brain melts. This is
Yeah.
annoying. So, again, time travel episodes and seasons are a pain to watch and to write and deal with. So, kudos
Yeah,
to
but I
them. They
think,
worked it
yeah,
out
they actually
quite
pulled
well,
this
I
off
felt. Yeah,
well,
like they actually
because.
did quite well with the time travel stuff here.
Mhm.
And they do mess with the timeline. But
Yeah.
when you see them mess with the timeline, you immediately realize this was supposed to happen. Like, this is the timeline. So again,
Mhm.
kudos to them. They pulled it off well. There's a lot that could
Yeah.
go wrong with something like this, and they did it extremely well.
Mhm.
But back to the episodes. I guess episode 3?
I do want to say one other thing about episode 2, that the climax is great.
Yeah, we have.
Because because and that's another thing I kind of like, that as much as I said that episode 1 felt a bit rushed, I do think that I like how in episode 2 we don't really bullshit around. We're just we are like Jim being at the prison with the other trolls and stuff. We don't really hold back on it for too long. Like by the end of this episode, all the trolls are free and they are escaping the castle, which again, great sequence of them escaping, and Claire, stopping the sun from rising so that they could get away and not turn to stone.
And learning that,
Great.
Claire's becoming more and more of a shadow mage, right?
Hmm.
And she has
Yeah,
an affinity for
and
shadow magic.
hmm and this kind of also sets Morgana on on her trail to become a shadow sorceress, as we know her in Troll Hunters.
Hmm.
And then we get like this great oh shit moment at the end, where the trolls are protected by Gunmar, the villain
Yes.
from Troll. Like when this happened, I was like, oh,
And this
okay.
is what made me thought like, oh, they're gonna go with Gunmar, and this is they're gonna do a redemption for Gunmar, and we're gonna find out like, oh, Gunmar wasn't really evil; it was just all King Arthur's fault. But they don't do that. Like Gunmar is just he just wants to kill the humans, and that's it. He just is evil, which fair play
Yeah,
to them, right?
yeah. On the one hand, I agree with you on that, but at the same time, well, wouldn't you want to kill the humans if the humans kind of declared war on you? But
Well, again, and this is kind of where I come back to. I feel that it's not just the beginning, but kind of the middle bit as well that's rushed because King Arthur, right? We have this setup for him where, oh, he's never been huge into the magic or magic creatures, right? But he was always okay with it. His wife was very much okay with it. His wife loved it. She was enamored by all of it, right? And, we find out, again, we might as well, because this is very much a part of episode 3, right? So, episode 3, Witch Hunt. Like, we have in the forest, in the, Whispering Woods or whatever it's called, right? That they go into this magical enchanted forest. We find out that Morgana, I think her name is Gwen, Arthur's wife, and and King
yeah,
Arthur himself, when they were young, would rush into the forest and play around, and that was where they were most free at, and they enjoyed themselves. And we learned that Arthur was
yeah,
always
that
a little bit. Oh, go ahead.
No, I would just want to say that that part was, you know, Arthur and Morgana's relationship, or and siblingship, I guess. Um, this was one of my favorite parts of the entire series. Like,
I agree.
kind of seeing this as like that for once, he does kind of tell her it does look like he's just like harsh to her because he's the king, but at the same time you can kind of tell where he comes from. And then when you see this background, you have this point where you see why they are at odds with each other, but also you kind of see them start to rekindle something. And then by the end, everything goes to shit, and they have this fight. And you find out that Arthur actually also uses a bit of magic through Excalibur.
Well, yeah, he was always
And
going to have to use magic. It's Excalibur. You can't have King Arthur
yeah,
without Excalibur. But again,
No,
like,
no, I'm not saying that you can. I'm not saying. I'm saying though that Excalibur does give him magic, so he's using the one thing that he actually hates, and he loses his sister because of it, or at least he thinks he does. And it also kind of gives you this misdirection because in Troll Hunters you think it's Merlin that took Morgana's hand, but in actuality it was Arthur.
mhm.
So yeah,
I
that was
just want to
I
point out, right?
yeah.
A lot of episode 3 boils down to King Arthur kills, Morgana, and then he just turns around and, how could magic do this? That old meme, right? Of that Adult Swim show where you have the guy, the talk show host shoot his guest, and then, how could blank do this, right?
Mhm.
That old meme. Like, that is literally episode 3 in a nutshell, right? Like, how could, Arthur kills his sister Morgana. How could magic do this? This was all magic's fault again. It's like,
Mhm.
no, I believe that one was your fault. I believe that one was definitely
Eh,
your fault.
it's one of those, you can tell where he's coming from, but it's also like you can't, you know, as I say, guns don't kill people, people kill
Yeah,
people.
yeah, yeah.
You
This.
didn't hear what you didn't hear what I just said.
I heard what you said. This, though.
Mhm.
Secret links. I'll even let our audience
Uh,
see this one, too. Memes.
so, let's see. Of course, the spoiler needs to load, and let's see. Yeah, yeah, okay, I get what you mean. Yes, but uh,
Memes, audience. Memes. There you go. You can see it on
memes.
screen now. Memes. There it is. King
Okay,
Arthur,
fair.
Morgana. How could magic do this? I mean, again, that's how it comes across, though, to me. When I saw it, it's like, really? That's what we're doing? Okay. Because here's my issue with King Arthur. Like, he just doesn't feel, and this is why I think King Arthur is another one of those kind of rushed problems where he just doesn't feel completely realized, right?
Mhm.
Because you have him flip flop back and forth a lot very quickly. And it's like, I feel like there should have just been a bit more time in there for us to kind of connect with him a bit more. Something, I don't know. I feel like there needed to be more there, right? Because it feels like he just flip flops back and forth too quickly. At one point, he's all kill all the trolls. They're all evil. We got to get rid of them all. None of them are good. Uh, to oh well, maybe I'm coming around. No, kill my sister. Crap, magic is really terrible. It's really really bad, and woe is me. And then all of a sudden, flip again to, well, we're all screwed. Might as well ally with the trolls. There are good trolls. There are good magic creatures. Let's do this. And then for later on, we find out, oh, actually, I'm this big gray knight that you saw in the first episode, King Arthur reborn, and I'm here to destroy the world because of all the sins I committed in the past. The world is still bad, and this is what my sister wanted. And it's like, how many times is this dude gonna flip between what he thinks and what he doesn't think? And it's just,
And I think that's part of the idea that is just an idiot who doesn't know what he wants.
I disagree, but fair enough, I suppose.
Mhm.
To me, I don't know. It's just one of those things that I don't feel it's as completely realized as it could have been, right? I feel like there could have been more there to his character, but then maybe that's the point. Maybe the focus isn't really his character, it's Morgana's. And I definitely kind of got that feeling of you're not supposed to really feel that much for Arthur. You're not really supposed to connect that much for Arthur. It's really about Morgana, right? Because it was Morgana and
Yeah,
Gwen
because
that continued even when they were adults to run out into the woods and enjoy themselves. It was Morgana and Gwen that were close. It almost feels like
it
it
almost feels like
the big gay Morgana and Gwen, right? Like it kind of does. It feels like they're trying to go that route with it just a bit, you know? Maybe that's just me. Maybe that's entirely on me, and I'm the only one that sees it that way. I'm losing my voice, but
I didn't see it that way, but
it
who
almost
knows?
feels like that's what they were going for a little bit,
Mhm.
and that was our focus with Morgana. I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but
On that note, but even though this is most of the episode, and I think it was done well, and I do like how we actually get to see Morgana's, kind of transformation. Like you start seeing the hints that she'll become what we know her. I also liked,
I would
Jim.
disagree. I don't think she becomes what we know her. You just see you see
I
where her
see.
you see the start of her fall here. Like
Yeah,
this is the start of her fall.
that's what I mean. See the start. That's what I was getting at.
I
Hello.
I'm still here.
Okay. Okay.
I was just gonna, one thing that stood out to me is, the spike trap thing and Steve just walking through it bravely and brazenly and just getting hit by every single
Yeah.
one of the spikes. And it's just like, how is he not dead? He should
No,
be dead.
the part I liked with Steve was when whenever Arthur or one of the other knights had like a clear shot of Jim or the other
Lancelot, that was
trolls.
Lancelot, and he just
Yeah.
comes up and it's just like, oh no, and hits him on the head with a rock. How
No,
could that
it's like
troll do this? Hits him on the head with a rock again.
no. The one I like is, oh look, there's a mosquito, and he like tackles him.
Oh yeah, that one too.
As someone who hates mosquitoes so much, I love just the idea that they used it for as a way of distraction and also a funny slapstick gig.
Steve
So I like it.
definitely went back and forth with me for this season, right? Like at times he was just like, okay, I don't care, Steve. And then other times like, you got me with that one. That was a good joke. I liked that one. I like Steve again. And then it just went back to, okay, I don't care about Steve again. Like, oh, Steve, I like him again. He was so back and forth for me this season between
And
and yeah, okay, funny.
so I do want to say that again, talking about Jim, I like how we still get him and Claire, not having, not really pushing that ship in our faces, but also not putting this in some sort of conflict. It's just, it feels natural, as natural as it can get, and I like it.
Mm-hmm.
So, and
Yep.
there's that. But then we get to the end of the episode where Jim and I forgot the name she goes by at this point.
Callista. Callista, I
Calista.
believe.
Yeah. So at the end of the episode, they meet Blinky.
Mm-hmm.
Past Blinky. And the funny thing is that I wrote in my notes Blinky, and I didn't notice that the dumb autocorrect on my phone changed it to Blanket. So,
Fair
so
enough.
it just so yeah, that's how the episode ends, with us meeting Blinky, and we go straight to episode 4, the Lady
Yes.
of the Lake.
We're on a journey to try and get Excalibur broke because Arthur broke it after killing
Yeah.
Morgana in his grief.
Yes. Well, not necessarily
And
killing
I
her,
want to
but
I want to point out my notes, right? Because at the first of this episode, you see Steve, them all on the boat, and Steve is talking, and he, picks his nose and then eats it, right? And I just wrote down, why do they feel the need to make Steve worse and worse? And then the scene immediately after that, they have, we meet the Doors, and it's like, you have Steve talking about earlier, right, in that scene where he's picking his nose and eating it. about his birthday suit. He's always wearing his birthday suit, and he'll go jump in the lake and swim in his birthday suit with that, right? And then they
Yes.
make this joke with at the door. It's like, well, at least we didn't have to see Steve in his birthday suit. And Steve just yells out in the background, "Too late!" And the doors are just, "Oh God, why do they have to see that? I'll never get that image out of my head." And in my notes, I wrote, "Fuck, that one Steve joke got me. I like Steve again." Right after writing down, why do they
Yeah.
why do they feel the need to make Steve worse and worse? And immediately after, why? Fuck, that one Steve joke got me. I like Steve again. That's my
Yeah.
notes.
One of my friends with him are coming up, but that's for later. So so we get like Steve Duxie and Claire and Merlin trying to get Excalibur fixed,
Mhm.
and this is actually something that I like when they get to that cave and that there are the two rockheads talking to them, and they're
Mhm.
like, "Oh, you should not pass," and Melon is like, "It's me," and they're like, "Oh, Melon, it's you. Go, come
Yeah.
in." I like how they
I
were
like the
just
rock. I
so
like the rock. The rock guys.
like they were so ready for this, and then like it's Melon. It's like, "Oh, god damn it. Okay, that's fine. Come in."
I also like how I'm gonna be alone forever. It was is what one rock door says, and the other rock door, "You're not alone. You have me here." And he's just quiet. And I'm like, oof. And then you have them like in the background the entire time. Well, because Duxie starts teaching Claire a little bit of shadow magic in this one and how to use and control her shadow magic, right? And that's how we find out that in this episode, Morgana is brought back to life. I believe we find that out in this episode. Or no,
Yeah.
is it this episode?
Um, Actually, remind me, is this episode where we see, where we get, Blinky and his brother come and explain Jim and about the war, and we see Gunmar's.
I think so.
Is this the episode where we see that Arg used to be a bad guy, that he used to work for Gunmar?
I mean, we already knew that. It's just we see him doing it in this episode. And
Yeah, I'm asking if this is the episode where we see that, because when I said I was honestly surprised that they actually showed us that, and I like showing it. I actually really enjoyed Evil Arg, because we know him as this big teddy bear, but actually seeing him being a monster it was both cool and honestly kind of creepy, because we know what he's ended up being. So I like that. That was cool. I really like it.
yeah, it's we see, I think in this episode we see a bit of Arg fighting with Gunmar, right? And him
Yes.
sparring with him is what we see in this episode. And it's later that we see them Arg go after Blinky and the others and try to attack them and everything,
Mm-hmm.
and try and get them to join Gunmar's army. And
Yeah.
I think we also see just a little bit of Morgana being revived by the Arcane Order
Yes.
and
And
our
that leads
big
us to
main
some.
villains, right? The Arcane Order.
Yeah, and that's another thing. Not necessarily with Morgana, but Duxie does try and teach Claire how to use her shadow powers and how
Mm-hmm.
she can. And again, this is a great show for Claire. Like, she really
Yeah,
steps up in this, and I
agreed.
really enjoyed and seeing her nail it, and just seeing what's up with Morgana and how they can get across the door. I like it. Like, because again, she wasn't a bad character by any means in Trollhunters. I liked her there fine, but
Mm-hmm.
in this, she just
Again,
she was just
this is
upgraded.
Claire's show. I felt like between Claire and a little bit of Duxie and a few and maybe Morgana, like this is mostly Claire's show. I felt like this is Claire's season. Like Wizards is Claire's thing. I feel, which is great. I really enjoyed that.
Which
And
again, I have no problem with that. But the thing is that the show wasn't advertised as being about her, and so technically they don't really they promise. I'm not sure. And again, I like what they bring us, but at the same time, it's kind of an eyebrow raiser, I would say.
I can see where you're coming from. I get it. But again, the big one of this is we Claire eventually learns how to control her shadow magic. You have the doors in the background the entire time yelling out how it's not going to work. Can't do it. You can't do that. It's never going to work. I love that joke, you know. I enjoyed it personally. It's quite fun. I love the door characters. Bring back more rock doors. More of them. But,
yeah, you know what? Let's make this the show after all of this wraps up. I want them to be the stars of the show.
Tales of Arcadia, doors.
Yeah, the wooden doors.
Tales of doors.
Yeah, Tales of Doors. There we go. Tales of Camelot.
But we eventually get into
the door again. You're listening. Call me. I've got a pitch for you. But
and they eventually get into the cave.
You say I have more chances to pitch something to someone than you do.
I just said I'm not saying nothing. That meant nothing. If you read into that, that's what you read into it. That's what you read into it. I meant nothing. It was just
Whatever you say.
But they eventually get into the cave, and we see the Lady of the Lake, and we find out the Lady of the Lake is just this giant monster, which was surprising. That got me.
Yeah, I do want to say that the Lady of the Lake is a simple design, but it works.
Well, I mean, normally the Lady of the Lake is supposed to be like this beautiful woman, right? And it's come to find out this Lady of the Lake is just tentacle monster, giant eyeball, and it's like, okay, that's neat. That's unique.
Yeah, but I like that when you first see her, the design is very simple for her, but then when you actually get that she's also kind of together with the Lady of the Lake, that's neat. That's a cool combination.
Yeah, I agree.
It's better than Amy Rose, but I'm not gonna reference that again.
But then we find out that Merlin actually trapped the Lady of the Lake in this cave and wouldn't let her go ever, like trapped her there forever, and that's when Dukesy decides to disobey Merlin and free the Lady of the Lake, this monster. And this is kind of where
apparently
I think...
apparently swallowed Merlin.
And Steve was swallowed with him. And that's when we find out Merlin's like, I was negotiating. Seems like you were eating, my guy. Not negotiating.
Yes, Netflix. I've watched Wizards. I'm doing a podcast about it. Stop mailing me. I literally got a message about this.
Wow. But that's when we find out. He frees the Lady of the Lake, and the Lady of the Lake decides to gift him with a reforged Excalibur. Except it's somewhat changed this time, because this time it has a green gem instead of a red gem, which is maybe a thing for later. I don't know. But they did make it different, so I'm curious if that's gonna have a play on anything or not. But yeah, and that's kind of it for episode 4. We then go back, and we're kind of set to try and take on Morgana, even though no one believes that Morgana is alive. They all believe Morgana's still dead.
Yes,
it's something I want to point out.
The Excalibur is back. Does bring a bit. It does bring some of the some of the good vibes back to Camelot. It does show, Arthur is also like a bit, because the episode was basically about him kind of facing the depression of killing his own sister, and then he kind of gets Excalibur back, and it does shield them.
Claiming that magic was the cause of it.
Just because he's an idiot doesn't mean the episode is about that. I'm just
How
stating
could magic do this?
Wolf, we're not opening that door again, because we'll be here forever.
Not gonna let it go, though. That door's gonna stay cracked, HC.
Okay. I'm bringing in Elsa. She'll figure out what to do with you. But
bring in the rock door guardians. They'll keep me out.
Yeah.
Gotcha. It's something I want to bring up, though, right? I think like the theme. I don't know if you would agree, but I feel like the theme of this season is very much because we kind of learned throughout our delving into the past of King Arthur, Morgana, even Merlin. Like, you see all these characters and kind of the choices they made and how they were imperfect. Like Merlin, choosing to lock up the Lady of the Lake. Merlin choosing to blindly follow Arthur because reasons, right? Like, you start to see, like, oh, these were the mistakes Merlin made, and these were the mistakes Arthur made, and these were the mistakes Morgana made. And you immediately see, like, and it gives off this feeling of, and you see, Dukesy and consistently always trying to search for Merlin's approval, always trying to achieve Merlin's approval. Even the Lady of the Lake says, that what Duxie really wanted was validation, right? Like he was seeking validation. So I
Mhm.
feel like the theme of the season is it's good to have those you look up to. It's good to have those elders that you look to and look up to and try to, idolize and be like, right? But it's also good to be your own person, to make your own decisions, to
Yes.
not seek out validation from your elders because your elders aren't perfect. They do make mistakes, they do make the wrong choices.
Agreed.
So I feel like that's the theme of this season, right?
Mhm.
And I would say for the most part, that's gotten across fairly well. What do you think?
Yes. I agree, but I would also say that in when it comes to Duxie, it felt a bit rushed.
Yeah, I thought it did as well, somewhat.
And that's why I'm saying that's not really his own show because we're focusing on a lot of things that this arc kind of like. We'll get to this. This is like in the next episode, I think after this, like episode 6, we are all of a sudden getting this bit where, jumping a bit ahead. We are getting this bit where Merlin tells them, "Help me create the amulet. You're ready. This requires 2 wizards. You're gonna be the other one." And it's like, oh, we are at this point already. Okay,
Yeah, I thought the
cool.
same thing as well because, like, going through episode 5 really quick, I suppose, like, we have it's kind of Morgana's making a plan to try and kill Arthur, and we know this, but Merlin doesn't believe everyone, and Merlin doesn't believe Duxie. It's like, oh, that's not possible. Go away. You're
By the
annoying
way,
me. You're being annoying.
side note for a second before we get to the actual episode. These 2 kids that were playing by the troll they captured in previous episodes
Hmm.
and that were like sparring. Do those look like nothing and How to Train a Dragon to you, or is it just me?
Do what now?
Do these kids that spar near the troll,
Hmm.
do they look like Zephyr and nothing from How to Train a Dragon to you?
Somewhat.
Okay,
But I
so it's
also had
not just
someone
me.
else mention and show off like an image of something flying away in one scene that looked like a oh, what do they call those particular dragons from Race to the Edge? The the one with Nidvarg, you remember? What was that dragon breed? The black ones?
The black ones.
Not
You
helpful,
mean
I know.
you mean the ones that would make
The
shapes?
ones that yes, the ones that would make shapes that lived on the
Uh,
Race to the Edge island. You
I
remember those?
I yeah I remember, I know what you're
I cannot
doing,
remember the name of the species they were given, but there's
but I know
I
what
saw
you're talking
something
about.
mentioned like that where there was, one of those dragons was used in a scene and was flying away from something, right? And it's just like it's really hard to tell because it's so fast motion, but if you pause it and look at that image, it actually looks like one of
Which
those
does bring
dragons.
the question. Which does bring up the question of how someone figured this out. Like the video stopped to buffer.
No, they're probably looking for things like that.
Okay,
Fans, they will tear
I
something apart looking for anything they can find.
I wish I had the time for this, but oh well. Anyway,
So, does that
back
mean
to the
though
thing.
that How to Train Your Dragon was a movie in the Troll Hunters universe, but also How to Train Your Dragon was real? So does that mean the movies in the Troll Hunters universe? Does that mean the movies based on a real life story?
Oh God, this is a Dreamworks theory. Next thing you'll tell me that you know what will be better? You know what will be fucking better? If someone said that they noticed like Jack Frost flying in the background
Oh God,
because
just wait for it now.
because oh man,
No, what
okay,
someone needs to
okay.
do
No, no,
is just is
the guy
really
the
work
guy who made
hard.
no,
Oh, go ahead.
the guy who made the Pixar theory that every Pixar movie is connected. Bring
Mm-hmm.
this guy in, make the same thing with DreamWorks.
You really
I'm
wanna
waiting.
you really wanna fuck with people? Someone needs to go in and it would take some work, but you just edit Jack Frost into one of the scenes in the background with other
Oh no.
characters and just make it look like it belongs really well. You'd really fuck with people then.
Okay, we need
Really fuck
someone
with
with
people.
we need someone with skills for that, and I do not have these skills. I can make fan art, but I can't do this.
I mean, you can easily connect that whole Monsters versus Aliens movie that DreamWorks made to this by just saying like there's a planet out there with the aliens on it, right? Because we already
I'll
know
take
aliens
your
exist in the Tales of Arcadia world, right? Because of Three Belows.
yeah.
So
I'll take your word for it because I haven't seen the movie.
there you go, viewers. Now you can take this theory forward and try and connect all of the DreamWorks things that DreamWorks has created.
All I need to know is how the hell B movie is connected.
Shrek, though, how is Shrek connected?
Yeah, that's fine. Far, far away is somewhere.
Far, far away is
Yes,
far, far away.
yeah, it's far, far away from Arcadia. Why are we talking about this? Back to the show.
The theory, though, HC, the theory.
You know what I want to make now. Put it on the list.
Oh no.
Put it on the list. Put it on the list for even a Bellcast episode. Let's actually do this. Let's connect all the DreamWorks movies.
Episode 5, though, Battle Royale. Yeah, like this one is just
yeah,
kind of the kids are preparing for Morgana's attack. There's a little bit of a tournament going on, and they think it's this character who looks extremely shady, looks really evil, must be the one that Morgana sent to attack the kingdom, right? No, it's just the guy. It's just the butler guy who's carrying everything for everybody, setting rocks everywhere, and then you find out those rocks were Fellstone, and he tries to blow up the castle and kill King Arthur because he's a changeling, and he fails because they stop him.
And but I will say that the highlight for me this because the first half of the episode is it's fine, but it kind of has this it's obviously a film episode, and
you gotta quit calling these filler episodes when they're not filler episodes.
You know what I mean.
I know what you mean, but you gotta quit doing that.
Okay, fine, but what I'm saying is they have.
Fair enough.
Okay. So it kind of starts like that, but the actual fight at the end where we see the team walking together and the knights coming on, this was a great fight. Like I really enjoyed it. Like even though it starts a bit, and I also enjoyed the start of this. I enjoyed the tournament. I enjoyed the scene. Steve, being picked for a fight and then just starts crying, but
we get to see more of Steve and Lancelot's bromance too. Also, help me figure something out here. Did Lancelot always have a robot arm from the very beginning? Because I swear he didn't. Like, I swear it just appeared up in this episode and I just missed it in previous episodes, but I swear his arm wasn't always a robot arm. Maybe it was and I just missed it. Like, did you notice, like, his arm has a spring attached to it, right? Like, he's missing his, left arm, I think.
I didn't notice that, actually. So.
Yeah, like, it's in this episode that I really noticed it, but I was like, but then I was like, wait, was that in previous episodes? Did I just miss that? Was it always there? Do not remember.
Yeah, but, so like I said, I did like at the end, with everyone teaming up and, seeing them walk off each other. That's great. And moving on to kind of the second part of this episode with Jim, I really like this part, where he's trying to get to Arg, and he doesn't make it. But when he traps him, he's like, "Listen," and all the trolls kill him, and Jim is like, "Wait, no, don't kill him." And Blinky is like, "He's right. We should torture him." I like that part. It's funny.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. So episode 6 then, I guess.
Episode 6, halfway through. So
this is a two-parter essentially. Episode 6 and 7.
Yeah,
Kill Ahead part 1
6
and part 2.
7 are Kill Ahead. So these are the two-parters. So we're gonna talk about together basically. But I will say for the 1-2-parter of this show, this was a great 2-parter.
Yeah. I agree. It, again, like it felt a little bit weird to have our big 2-parter and big kind of almost final battle feeling at this point when we still have 3 episodes left to go. It kind of makes you feel like, what can you do after this almost, right?
I kind of, on the one hand I agree, but on the other hand I'm also kind of realizing that, They just probably figured the two episodes are too connected to one another as opposed to the others,
You know,
so just make
I
it a two-parter.
realized kind of what my problem is with this season. One of my bigger problems just
Uh-huh.
now. The Arcane Order. They're set up as the big bad, but
Mm-hmm.
they don't do anything. We see them at the beginning. We see them pop up for a little bit in this two-parter, and then we see them at the finale, and that's when they're in the final 3 episodes. That's when they're actually doing something. It feels like we're building up to the Arcane Order, but we have nothing from the Arcane Order. Like we have no connection to them whatsoever, other than the little bits and pieces we're given here and there. But it's still yet we're not focused on the Arcane Order. We're focused on Morgana, right, and Gunmar and King Arthur and Merlin.
Mm-hmm.
The Arcane Order is just this very much. They're the ones. It's almost kind of like that shadowy organization behind the big bad, and it's like, but they're the real big bad, and it's just kind of like I just have no connection to the Arcane Order. Not enough to really feel like they feel like a threat, to be honest. Personally.
Okay, that's fair. I get what you mean.
But, Kill Ahead Part 1 and Part 2. It's a great battle. Like seeing, this is when King Arthur finally decides, oh, I need to work with the trolls. We need to band together. And he tries, and that fails. And, this is where we have, the amulets made, like you said. Merlin acknowledges Duxie finally somewhat, gives him his own staff finally as well. And, then we, the amulet chooses Callista. She doesn't want it at first, so she runs off. Jim finds her. They have a bit of a talk. That's when Callista finally figures out, what her name is, Dea. And then, we kind of go to the battle itself, and we see all the knights getting ready to fight Gunmar and his Gum Gum army. And then it begins, and we see the big fight.
Mm-hmm.
And it's enjoyable, and it's fun to watch. And they kill Lancelot. Steve's bromance is no more. And again, like they play this one really well. Like they make it look like, oh, Steve ran away again. Ugh. But no, then he comes back and you see Gunmar, flicked off to the side by the Lady of the Lake, and that kind of explains why Gunmar wasn't sucked into the portal at Killahead Bridge. And you see Blinky's brother Dictatius get taken away by some, goblins or whatever they're called. And, that kind of explains why he's not around and why he gets sucked into Killahead Bridge. Again, you see all the things that happen, right? Like in this scene that makes you realize, oh, so, they've not messed with the timeline. This is the timeline. Like, this is how this is meant to happen. This is supposed to happen this way, which is interesting.
Yep, I agree.
Although it does kind of bring me back to, I don't remember if she did. Maybe she did, but it does kind of make you ask, how did Morgana not recognize Claire, right? Back in Troll Hunters when she saw her.
Yeah, well, yeah, I guess this is one of those questions.
That's one thing that kind of stands out to me.
But other than that, I do like the idea of that we actually see how the amulet came to be. We actually get to see the origin of it in this episode, which is Arthur offering a piece of kind of like an alliance to the trolls. And I do also like that the trolls don't necessarily want this alliance. They're like very wary of him because what happened to your to your head us, and it's like we have a common enemy and stuff. And it does kind of start like, okay, we get the origin of the amulet, which I really like, but at the same time this also, like I said with Duxie, that all of a sudden it's like, oh, we need 2 wizards to work this, and it's like, okay, that's a bit rushed at this point, but okay, sure. But then we get the amulet, which again, but then it chooses the actual first troll hunter, and it's like, oh, I'm not ready to feel for this. And what's the point? Really, we need to do this cliche, like, come on.
I mean, to be fair, it doesn't last long, right? Like, it's barely even a scene.
It doesn't last long, but at the same time, it's like, come on. And another thing that, although this one I do kind of like, that, actually, I'll get to this later. But another thing I like is that we do see Doral is his name. The son of the troll hunter before Jim.
Mm-hmm.
We actually get to see him there, which was kind of cool.
Yeah.
And
Agreed.
mhm. And I also like that once the amulet doesn't work, quote unquote, there is a great moment for Arthur where he's literally just thinking what he's doing and how if his methods are actually good or not. There are great moments here, and I think my favorite
Mm-hmm.
is that we actually get where Claire takes Jim to where they had their first kiss and where they had their first date, and they actually have this really sweet moment together. Which again, I like their relationship together. They're adorable.
Yeah,
I want
agreed.
to, I want to make fan art now.
Oh no.
Oh no!
I'm
Gee, thanks.
no, you're a great
Gee,
artist.
thanks.
I'm just, all the extra work. Have fun with that. Yeah, another thing that I really liked about this, if I'm not mistaken, is also to mention, we find out like, oh, when they go back to the future, they all have to go back, but when they do, the stone that's been stuck in Jim's chest that's trying to corrupt him and everything, right? Which happened way back in episode 1. We forgot to mention that. Sorry. We find out that when he does go back to the future, there's no way to cure this. There's no way to fix it, so
Yeah.
he will. It will corrupt him completely. It will take him, right? Like he will die or whatever what have you, quote unquote.
Mm-hmm.
Which is
Yeah.
interesting. Again, because this is the sacrifice Jim has to make for being the hero, right? This is the thing we have to find out. And you have Merlin tell Duxie this, and Duxie's like, no, there has to be a way. And I kind of enjoyed Duxie's character, where he's just this continuously, there has to be a way. We have to be able to save everyone. Like he's this
Yeah.
overtly kind, overtly caring, overtly
But at the
wants to
same
be
time,
there.
you can. But at the same time, you can kind of like Jim.
Hmm?
But you can also say though that Jim was like.
Oh yeah,
You
Jim
know,
is also this way, but again, it kind of speaks to they are very similar and alike in some ways.
Mm-hmm. And kind of segueing into the part 2 of this to episode 7, the fight scene. Actually in episode 6, I like how the fight is actually set up at the end, and then we cut, and then episode 7 is the fight itself, and the fight itself is really damn good.
Oh yeah, agreed. And again, like you see everything fall into place with the timeline in this episode as well, and it's just again, it's all enjoyable, very enjoyable. You see Arg come in, and him and Blinky decide to hang out and be pals together.
Arg and Blinky, starting to build a friendship, and seeing how they got to where we know them to be was really sweet, and I really enjoyed that. And actually, one enjoyed was when there's this point where Duxie and Merlin are fighting with Morgana, and Merlin kind of tells Duxie that he needs to make the staff his own, and he makes a guitar, an electric fights with an electric guitar. That is awesome.
Yeah, that was really neat. And again, this is where we kind of see Morgana finally become the witch that we knew her when she just absolutely despises and hates Merlin, right? Because Arthur dies. It's one of the Arcane Order members that kills Arthur. And kind of going back to that old meme, how could Merlin do this when it's, Arthur died because of something Morgana did, right? It's like, how could Merlin do this? Like, oh my god, people, please. But, one of the Arcane Order members kills Arthur and he dies, and Morgana goes after Merlin, blaming Merlin, right? Or, the Arcane Order sends her after Merlin, and she decides to actually try and kill Merlin because she blames them, or she blames him.
Yes.
And you see Duxie and Merlin fighting against Morgana, and you see, Duxie actually being the one to take Morgana down, not Merlin. And it's interesting because, you have Merlin way back during Troll Hunters tell us that he was the one fighting Morgana, that he was the one doing all these things, that this is how it happened, when actuality, he was lying through his teeth.
Yeah, a lot of revelation here in this show.
But again, I think that kind of plays back into that your elders aren't always perfect. These people you look up to and admire and want to be more like and want that, acknowledgement and validation from, they're not always perfect. They are human. They do make mistakes. They do make wrong choices, or they do things that aren't good.
Yes. And that and that brings us to one of the things that kind of shocked me, even though I kind of knew that it wasn't going to hold, but that Arthur actually dies in this episode.
Yes. Yeah, I just said that. Where you been?
Sorry.
I'm kidding. You're fine. But yeah, Arthur is killed. But again, it kind of makes sense because they did so little with his character. I felt.
Yeah, but so this is why I kind of might not like when I first started. I was like, oh shoot, I didn't see that one coming. But I'm like, wait, they didn't really do a lot with him. I don't think he's entirely gone, but
even
but
again,
also,
like they, go ahead.
But another thing I like about this episode, though, is that it's not just that fight. It's also, it's also Jim, Claire, Duxie, and Steve going back to the present, and and they kind of, and again, it does also bring up the idea that again, thing in Jim's chest, it is gonna kill him, and they kind of try to convince him to not do this, and Claire again is on by his side, and they come back, and this is where it ends. We're kind of left with, did they manage to come back okay? What's gonna happen now that they are back? And again, it's one of those, I don't want to stop. I want to see where this is going.
Oh yeah, like I would say the last 6 episodes, like this 2-parter, then the next 3 episodes are pretty much just one nonstop ride. Like it's hard to stop in the middle of it. Like it continues on from there. We go from the Battle of Killahead to we're immediately back in the future now with episode 8, Wizard Underground. And, we see the castle falling out of the sky because it's, still been under attack this entire time while they've been in the past doing all these things and kind of going through all this stuff. This has been happening in the future and we're back here and we're, we see, the stone still affecting Jim, and Jim decides to sacrifice himself, pushing the stone in the rest of the way.
Note, I'm sorry if you hear someone just singing. My neighbor thinks he's sing again. Fuck him. But
fair enough. But yeah, Jim sacrifices himself to try and buy the rest of them time to get away, and that's when we go to
episode 8.
Well, but that is episode 8.
Yeah,
we're on episode 8.
Which brings us to something that I didn't know. Like I like it as an idea. I really like the idea that he's actually becoming a full-on troll. That he's like now a giant, like he's basically gone Hulk, if you want.
Mm-hmm.
I like that design.
Yeah, again, I think I agree. It was really neat and interesting to see. And, this is where we get the reveal that, and I've been saying the Grey Knight, it's the Green Knight. Forgive me, I know people are going to get mad at me later, or for that in the comments, that I realized it this late. I'm sorry. But if we get the reveal that King Arthur isn't dead, he is the Green Knight.
Actually, because we kind of get, but we don't see his face.
Yeah.
But, like, as soon as
it's him, though.
Like, as soon as I saw it, yep, that's Arthur.
It's him. And it's kind of like, I'm not surprised by that at this point, but I also I don't care.
Mm-hmm. And also, speaking of something that, we do see Carell from Three Below in this. And I'm like, I was actually happy to see them because we were kind of ignoring Three Below, which, if you saw the second season, it does make sense as to why they would ignore it a bit. But, I see him there, and it's like, but wait, what does he have to do in the long run here? He doesn't really have much of a point, honestly.
I mean, he's just there to be there, really. Like, he's just there as a part of the main hero gang at the very end of it all, because we got to have our Avengers moment of getting everyone back together, but we didn't quite get everyone back together because we still have
Because where's Aja? Where's Valda?
Yeah. Where's all the rest of them at? So, again, he's just there to be a bit of a plot device for, oh, here, you can look at this recording. This is what happened to everyone later, And that's kind of it. Which, fair enough, I suppose.
But the end of this episode, though, the end of this episode where, they have this big fight where, Claire is kind of trying to get Jim, to see himself
Mm-hmm.
again, and Duxie and Merlin and Steve are going against Morgana and Arthur, and then we get the,
Oh yeah,
kind of
Morgana's
the
revived, by the way, because her arm that Merlin somehow got a hold of was used to create the Troll Hunter's amulet, and
yes.
because of that, that's how she's brought back to life again
Mm-hmm.
for the umpteenth millionth time.
Do you think that at this point she just wants to be dead? Like,
I
just
mean,
leave me alone.
she even says, right, like when she's brought back, why? I was finally at peace, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, yeah, I think she wants to be dead at this point. I don't think she wants to come back anymore. So again,
Well,
like, and this is kind of where we start back on that redemption story for Morgana. She sees King Arthur, her brother, is still alive, but he's tainted, he's changed, like he's not the King Arthur that she knew.
mm-hmm.
And that's kind of where I kind of fall back into that problem of King Arthur. Just they're too flippant with his character. There's nothing there that grounds him. Even when she tries to, in episode 8 when her and Claire meet each other in the Shadow Realm, or episode 9 when her and Claire meet for each other in the Shadow Realm, trying to save Jim, and Claire trying to save Jim, and and Morgana trying to save her brother, respectively. Claire is able to break through to Jim, but Morgana tries to break through to King Arthur, and it's just kind of, he's completely like, no, we must destroy the world to right the sins of our past and make it better. And it's like, huh? What? Why? Like, there has to be something there for his character to he just doesn't work as the villain for this big Green Knight thing. It's just not built up well
Yeah.
enough, I feel.
Yeah, now that you say it, yeah, I agree.
In my opinion. Again,
But
it's not terrible. It's just, for me, it wasn't
mm,
enough of a
but
connection.
yeah, but speaking of connections though, what I found interesting is that they legit kill Merlin,
Mm-hmm.
and that was I won't say I cried necessarily, but it did make me feel bad. And Merlin is not really a popular character in Troll Hunters fandom,
No.
this legit got me. You
I mean,
know,
it's heavy, but I'm going to sound awful here. I didn't feel that much at his death. I didn't feel connected enough between the relationship between him and Dukesy, because it hasn't been built up enough for it to warrant this kind of thing, right? Like, it's played very well. Like, kudos to the voice actor for Merlin, and Dukesy. They play it off extremely well. It's a great scene, but I feel like, it doesn't have the same weight and impact that, something similar to this does, the Spider-Man death, or, the, Iron Man death for Spider-Man and Iron Man, right? Like, having
yeah,
Tony Stark
in the
die.
Avengers.
Yeah, the Avengers, right? Like, having Tony Stark die there. That's way more impactful because you've had that build up with Tony Stark for multiple movies. He's been in all these. You've had that character built up. Dukesy
Mhm.
and Merlin, sure, you've had Merlin's character built up, right? And that's been great and that's been enjoyable.
But at the same time, you because because I think someone in the production team of this has to know that people don't really like Merlin in the fandom. Not anyone. Like again, I'll bring the friend that was supposed to be here. She never hated Merlin, but
I
a
like
lot
him.
of people did. Yeah,
Like, I
yeah,
like the character, but
and
it's
you too.
just,
But yeah, but a lot of people didn't, especially after he turned Jim into a troll in Troll Hunters
mhm.
3, and there was and so one, I'll give him props for doing the ballsy thing of killing him off, and if they actually got a reaction from the people who didn't like him,
Oh yeah, like,
that's
credit to that. If they're able to get a reaction, all the credit, more credit to them. It's just that I feel like the goal here is to really emphasize the connection between Dukesy and Merlin, and Dukesy viewing Merlin as a father figure, right? But the problem is just we didn't really get that kind of build up for their relationship necessarily for it to really hit home, right? Like, there's some of it here and there, but I feel like they had so much else they had to focus on as well that it's hard to really get that through, that relationship that Dukesy and Merlin had with one another. How Dukesy viewed Merlin and how connected he was to him, and how much he really wanted Merlin's validation and appreciation. And again, there was moments there, but I don't know if it was enough to really hit me. At least not with his death. It was later on, right? When we see Duxie talking with in episode 9. Yeah, in episode 9 when we see Duxie talking with Scarlemagne, Archie's father, right? That's when it hit me. That's when it got me a lot more because that's when you really see how much Duxie depended on Merlin and how much it hurts him to finally have to let go, and have to destroy Merlin's staff, right? Like, that's when it got me. That's when it hit me. Not when Merlin actually died. Personally.
That's fair, but I still felt something for
Which is
this.
great. Like, again, if it hit you, that's great. Like, I commend the writers and all the people who worked on this for everything that they did to make it work. Like, they did really well at that. I think, again, it not hitting me that hard does not make it a bad scene at all, right?
So with that said, this kind of leads to 9 now, which Dragon's Den, which suddenly, Merlin kind of left something for Duxie to figure out, and it's like, oh, how do
He
I
wrote a
need someone
book
to
in
read this.
Ancient Draconic that no one can read except for Archie's dad.
Yeah, which what a coincidence that Archie's dead, kind of close by, or at least we can get to him fast.
And we find out, again, this is like, we find out we're in a race to find the Genesis seals now and to try and keep Nari, a character who was introduced way back in episode 1, who used to be a part of the Arcane Order, away from the rest of the Arcane Order so they cannot open the Genesis seals and destroy the world. Because the Arcane Order's entire goal is to destroy the world because they feel like they feel like it's not in balance. So the only way to balance it is destroy it all. Kill everything. This plot again.
Yeah. And this, but to get to something that I really like though in this, we get, Claire and Morgana fighting in the Shadow Realm, and then but then they're also like trying to work together to get, Arthur and Jim. We actually get to see him and Jim again in there. Who's and I like that idea that Claire at the beginning can't really touch him because he's like a ghosting, but then she does manage to have contact with him. But then again, he's kind of like a bit too far gone. I like I like the intensity of this.
Yeah, again, it's a really well done thing, and you see Morgana try the same thing with Arthur, and Arthur's even more far gone. Like, she's not even able to have any kind of connection with Arthur whatsoever, right? Again, it's interesting stuff, but I just feel like for the Morgana and Arthur part, there's just not enough there for Arthur for you to really feel anything, personally. And his character just feels too flippant, potentially.
One thing I will say, the design father is I like that dragon. It's a cool design.
Yeah, for Scarlemagne, yeah. I like how, Archie makes Scarlemagne sound like this super scary dragon that's going to kill and destroy anything that he meets, and he's actually just, a nerdy bookworm dad with dad jokes and all. And Archie's like, ugh. And that's why he, tries to make sure they never go meet his dad because he just doesn't like how nerdy and bookwormy and how, punny his dad is. It's like, okay, that was cute. That was adorable. I liked that. That was fun.
So with that said, though, I do think that the translation for is kind of cheesy. That it's that Melly kind of left a message to do that. At the end of the day, it's all up to him. Like it was kind of sideline because it's kind of like it's a trope that you need to follow, but at the same time, like, okay, we could have done something else.
But again, as I said, right, it kind of culminates into, in order to find the Genesis seals, you have to destroy Merlin's staff, and that kind of goes into, this a really good moment that like I said, this is the moment that hit me a little bit harder than Merlin's actual death was Duxie having to let go, was Duxie having to finally decide for himself what to do and make his own path, right? And finally decide that Merlin made his choices. Merlin had his path. These are the choices I'm going to make. These are the things I'm going to do. I'm going to do things my way, right? I
Yes.
like that. Like, that was a great moment for Dukesy. Like, an exceptionally
Mhm.
good moment for Dukesy.
Agreed. So, to episode 10.
Yes. Our final act in the final episode.
Yeah. And again, this is gonna bring up something that we talked about this a lot throughout this podcast. That it's called our final act, and it also kind of acts like a big finale because we see everyone that's around coming together to finish that fight and everything. But then we get this tease at the end, jumping the gun a bit. We're just like, oh, okay, I guess we're not done yet. And then
Since you're
sure enough,
mentioning the tease at the end, Nari in casual attire is fucking adorable with the little horns, with the little antlers pointing out, a little toboggan, and her wearing, the coat. Like, it was fucking adorable, all right? I wouldn't mind
yeah,
seeing more casual Nari wearing casual clothes. That was adorable. I want to see more of that. She's adorable. I love her.
okay, fair.
If anything
But
happens to her, I will kill myself, and then I will kill everyone else in this room, and then myself. That old meme. More memes.
okay.
Give me more Nari.
uh,
So let me
yeah.
ask you. I feel like,
Hello, welcome to the Outcast, where we review wizards and memes.
but I have a question for you. I felt like that was setting up a second season for Wizards, but you said we're getting
Yeah.
the movie, and you said that, as far as you're aware, Wizard, this is it. This is done after the movie.
This is
So,
something that take it with a grain of salt
mhm,
because
mhm.
from what I've heard, I'm like from people who work on this show and are involved. I heard that this is supposedly the only season of Wizards we're going to get.
So do you feel
And
like Wizards was so? If with that being the case, right? Considering how Wizards is set up and how it's done, I feel like it was mostly done to set up for the movie at this point.
yeah,
Like,
because
everything that
like
came
because
before,
like
looking at,
literally, I'm not joking you. Like literally, a few minutes after I finished the show, I logged on Facebook and then I saw suddenly that there was a teaser for a movie. The movie is, by the way, called Troll Hunters: Rise of the Titans, and it's set to
yeah,
premiere
I've
next year.
heard. Okay,
Mhm.
I thought that was just another show. So,
No,
I think, right. Troll Hunters and Three Below feels like, oh, we don't know if we're going to get a movie. Let's make an actual show. We don't know if we're going to get a movie. We don't know if we want to make a movie. So let's make this a show. Wizards feels more like, we know we're getting a movie, so this is set up for that movie. That's kind of
kinda.
what Wizards feels like to me at this point. Knowing that now, like, watching it, I said before, right? I've said countless times that something felt a bit about it, the show entirely, right? In its entirety. And now that you've mentioned, like, oh, Wizards isn't getting a second season, and they are getting a movie, though, or Troll Hunters, Tales of Arcadia is getting a movie to add to the Tales of Arcadia franchise. That to me kind of feels like that's the gap that I was missing. That's the feeling. That's why Wizards feels the way it does, is that, oh, we know we're getting a movie, so we'll just do this as setup for that movie, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that, but it does feel like Wizards as a whole takes a bit of a step down, in my opinion, compared to Troll Hunters and Three Below, in terms of how connected I am with it compared to previous stuff, right?
Mhm.
I feel like previous stuff built itself up better than what Wizards does, maybe. And at least in some regards.
Mhm.
Maybe that's just me, though, which is perfectly fine and fair too.
Well, the thing I will say though is before I knew there was going to be a movie, because again I binged that and didn't notice my Facebook until minutes after. I just kind of assumed that you know that this was the final episode. This was the
Mhm.
end all be all. And I not if we ignore the fact that now that we know the movie got coming, if as an end all be all, I really enjoyed this film.
Oh yeah,
This was
I
a
think
great
this is a
episode.
good enough end for it.
Mhm.
Yeah, if we get nothing
Like,
after this, I'm okay with that.
mhm. Because Duxie is standing up for himself and having that great action sequence for himself
Mm-hmm.
throughout most of this episode. This was great, and then Claire and everyone trying to get Jim back. That was great. I have a bit of an kind of an feeling that they kind of did this thing there where it's implied that Claire's tears brought back from the dead,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't think it was necessarily that visual. So who knows? But at the same time, I like the fact that, because one thing I did put on my notes for this is that Jim gets shit on for so much in this show. So it's nice to see him, by the
Finally
end
get to come back as human, yeah.
getting his human form again, getting the girl, and kind of realizing that he may not be the troll hunter anymore. Just he got his
But then
happy
they
ending.
still like have this thing of, oh well, maybe you can have King Arthur, you can have this sword, Excalibur itself, Jim, so you can still be, you no longer need the amulet, you're no longer the troll hunter, but here's Excalibur, so you can still be that, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, set up, 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 set up. That's what it is.
This I didn't really get set up just like Excalibur now.
Oh,
Obviously,
that's gonna,
that's
if they're having a movie, that's gonna be a big
okay. I'm
thing of,
saying this
oh
before.
shit, stuff's going bad. We need to go get Jim, and Jim's like,
No, no,
It's
no. What
like,
I
pull
meant,
out the sword, shing.
Wolf. What I meant is that if before I knew there was a movie, this felt like a good place to end it. Like, okay, he has Excalibur. It's
Well, he
his.
doesn't have it. It's in the stone. Like, it's the sword in the stone again, right?
Yeah,
But he can
true,
go and
but
pull it out potentially,
mhm,
or someone can. Steve
yeah.
gets Excalibur. Oh God, help us all.
Yeah, sure. He will get. He's worthy for well, yes. But so, like I said, great finale. Just great seeing come together and everything. And just I didn't have many notes on this one just because I was so soft by the episode, just waiting to see what will happen. I
Mm-hmm.
do think though that the ending of this was like, why are we setting up if we like again keep in mind thoughts before the movie was announced. What is the point of setting up something? You said this is the only.
You're breaking up somewhat again.
Uh,
But yeah, while we're waiting on him to come back.
it took a while though, so at least
Hello.
that was something. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. You're good.
So I
Hopefully.
did say that at least it took us until that point before it broke up again.
Mm-hmm.
So that was that.
It dropped once or twice here and there, but it wasn't really bad. This time it was pretty bad. But yeah, like I think, as much as I feel like this season was somewhat rushed and that I think it needed more, I'm still, I still enjoyed it and I'm still okay with the ending it got. And if I got nothing else after this season, I would be okay with that. Like, I think it does end well enough that
Like again, cut
I
the
can
final 10 minutes.
put Dreamworks Tales of Arcadia to rest for myself, right?
Yeah, like cut the last 10 seconds, and yeah, I agree with you.
Mm-hmm. I see where you're coming from. Like, yeah, I would agree. Like, I think, this is good enough for me. I'm glad I'm getting more. I will enjoy that I get more. But if I didn't, I would be okay with that. Like, this feels like a good enough wrap up. Like, you can see, you know, you have the Arcane Order still being a thing. They're still going to be chasing Duxie, but you've seen that Duxie is grown enough now, that he's learned enough now, that he's changed enough now, that he can handle things by himself now. He can handle things on his own if he needs to, and he always has his friends, and the rest of the Guardians of Arcadia to come back to if he needs to, right? And you
Yes.
see the sword, you see Excalibur stuck in the stone, and Jim tries to pull it out, but then decides, maybe I don't want to, maybe I don't want to be that hero, maybe I can't be that hero, and you kind of see, oh, there's the setup for him, but he can come back to it in the future if he so chooses or needs to. You see everything there. You can see how it could go further, but you also see this is a good stopping point for it. It doesn't need to go further if it doesn't want to, or if it doesn't have to, or if it can't. Like, it's just good enough. It's food
Agreed.
for thought for fans who want to continue themselves, but for those who don't and this is their end, they're satisfied, I feel.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. So, anything else on Wizards before we close?
Like you said, it's a great final battle between Duxie and the Arcane Order, and him just really showing just how powerful he's become as a mage and everything, and a wizard. And you see kind of everyone just playing their part, and you see Morgana and Arthur fight, and you have that nice little touching reunion with, oh, Duxie might have died, and it's he's just there talking with Merlin and Morgana, and you kind of see both of them praise him a bit, and they say, hey, it's your turn now. We've had our time. We've had we tried it our way. Now it's your turn. Do your best and do it your way. I like that. Again, it ties into that season theme of finding your own way, while finding your own way while still trying to admire and respect and look up to those people that you look up to. That's fine, you can do that, but also you need to find your own way, right? Like that being the season theme. I like how it ends with them telling Duxie, hey, it's your turn now. Do it your way. Find your own way. You can do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's all good. It's great. Very enjoyable little bit.
So this was all for this episode of the Outcast. We hope you enjoyed. What are your thoughts about Wizards? You can tell us all about them in the comment section below, on our Tumblr, which is Bellcast Team, and our Twitter, which is Bellcast with a capital B, capital C. So until next time, I was HC.
I was Wolf.
And we will talk to you all next time. Take care.
Bye-bye.